Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to dive into online shopping in India,
Oh, yeah.
specifically e-commerce and the even faster quick commerce or Q-commerce.
It's a pretty fascinating area, especially, here in India, we've got a ton of research articles showing
Yeah.
just how this digital marketplace is absolutely booming, but also
Yeah.
how it's sort of bumping up against laws that were kind of designed before the internet, like the
Right.
Information Technology Act, the Consumer Protection Act, even FDI restrictions.
Okay, so it's not just about adding things to our cart and hitting checkout.
The
There's,
whole legal system behind it.
where do we even start with all this?
Well, think of it like building a house.
Okay.
You need a good foundation, right?
Yeah.
In this case, that foundation is the Information Technology Act of 2000.
Oh, wow.
It might sound pretty old in internet years,
Yeah, for sure.
but it's what makes your online shopping experience legally sound.
So how does a law from 2000 deal with something as new as Q-commerce?
Well, it covers the basics really well.
Okay.
Digital contracts, e-signatures.
Right.
Those are all validated by the IT Act.
Mhm.
Back then, this was all cutting-edge stuff, like proving you agreed to something online. These days, we kind of just take it for granted.
Yeah.
But what's really relevant today
Yeah.
is the focus on data protection. Did you know that companies can be penalized like really heavily if they don't safeguard your data properly?
I had no idea it went that far back.
Yeah,
That makes you think twice about all those little pop-ups, like sign up with your email for 10% off.
exactly.
Yeah.
But the law has been evolving too.
Uh-huh.
The Consumer Protection Act of 2019, and specifically the rules that they added for e-commerce,
Okay.
are all about transparency.
Transparency.
Have you ever gotten that feeling of like, who am I actually buying this from?
Oh, yeah. All the time.
On some websites. So this act mandates that these platforms show you really clear seller details,
Okay.
delivery timelines, the whole 9 yards.
So it's like bringing those
Yeah, no more shady dealing.
consumer rights we expect in the real world to the online space.
Exactly. And it goes even further.
That's up to
Remember
date.
those product reviews you see and you're like, is this real?
Oh, totally.
The Consumer Protection Act tackles those fake reviews head on. Platforms have to verify if those glowing reviews are actually legit,
Wow. Okay.
so you can be more confident about what you're buying.
That's super helpful. I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to reviews now.
It makes a big difference.
For sure.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about those FDI restrictions you mentioned.
Yeah.
They might seem kind of boring, like dry economic policy,
Right.
but they really impact what kinds of e-commerce giants
Uh-huh.
can actually operate here in India.
Yeah. I've always wondered about that.
Yeah.
It seems like some global companies have a totally different setup in India
Yeah.
than, say, in the U.S.
That's 100% because of FDI,
Okay.
foreign direct investment.
FDI, got it.
It's all about how much a foreign company can invest in different businesses.
Right.
And here's where it gets interesting for e-commerce, because India distinguishes between two main models:
Okay.
marketplace and inventory-based. So marketplace platforms are like the big names we all know.
Okay.
Amazon, Flipkart.
Right.
They basically connect buyers and sellers,
Uh-huh.
but they don't actually own the products themselves.
Okay.
Think of it kind of like a digital bazaar.
Right.
Now, FDI regulations allow for up to 100% foreign investment in these marketplace platforms.
So that's why those companies are so massive here.
Exactly.
But what about that other model, the inventory-based one?
Right. So inventory-based is where the platform itself actually owns all the products and sells them directly to you.
Okay.
This is way less common in India
Right.
because FDI is not permitted for this model.
Wait, so a company like, say, a big international clothing brand
Right.
can't just set up their own online store and ship directly to customers in India?
That's the gist of it. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a deliberate move to protect local businesses and make sure that everyone's competing on a level playing field.
So if every global giant could just bypass
Exactly.
Indian retailers entirely,
Right. It'd be chaos.
it would be total chaos. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like balancing the global market
Exactly.
with the needs of
Yeah.
Indian businesses.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
With the rise of Q-commerce.
Uh-huh.
This need for speed is changing how we shop.
Right.
And the law is really struggling to keep up.
It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so how is Q-commerce different from regular e-commerce?
Right.
Legally speaking,
Yeah.
isn't it just faster delivery?
Well, on the surface, yeah, it's
Right.
all about getting you that, bag of chips
Right.
or those last minute party supplies in like minutes.
Yeah.
But that speed comes with a whole host of new challenges
Okay.
that existing laws weren't really designed to handle.
Like what kind of legal headaches
Yeah.
are we talking about?
Licensing and compliance,
Mhm.
for one.
Okay.
Imagine, a network of these dark stores popping up all over cities.
Okay.
These are like mini warehouses
Yeah.
with everything from groceries to electronics.
Right.
You can't just operate those without meeting a ton of regulations.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you can't just have someone's apartment double as a dark store.
Exactly.
Okay.
There are zoning laws, fire safety regulations,
Mhm.
and then, of course, food safety standards
Right.
if you're dealing with perishables.
Yeah.
It's a logistical nightmare even before you think about the delivery.
And speaking of delivery,
Yeah.
those gig workers are really the backbone
Yes.
of this whole Q-commerce model.
Huge.
Are there legal issues there too?
That's probably the biggest legal and ethical challenge Q-commerce faces.
Really?
Yeah. You've got this army of delivery riders zipping through traffic, trying to meet these super tight deadlines.
Yeah.
But existing labor laws just haven't caught up to this gig economy model. It's a very complex issue.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have the flexibility and
Yeah.
earning potential
Yeah.
that attracts people to gig work.
Oh.
But on the other hand, there's a lack of those basic protections
Yeah.
and the potential for exploitation.
And I imagine with Q-commerce that pressure is just amplified.
For sure.
Time is literally money.
It is, and that raises so many questions.
Yeah.
How do we ensure fair wages and safe working conditions for these writers?
Right.
Who is responsible if there's an accident?
Yeah.
It's a legal minefield that we're just starting to explore.
And it's not just about the riders either, right?
Yeah.
There's the environmental impact
Absolutely.
of all these
It's a
deliveries.
huge concern to think about.
Yeah, the carbon footprint of Q-commerce is growing.
Yeah,
All those delivery vehicles on the road, the packaging waste,
right.
the energy to power those dark stores,
Yeah.
it all adds up.
It seems like convenience often comes at a cost,
It does.
both for workers and the environment.
Often, yeah. And it's becoming clear that we need new rules,
Mhm.
new frameworks to
Mm.
make sure that Q-commerce doesn't turn into a race to the bottom.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
How do we balance this desire for speed
Yeah.
with the need for sustainability and
Yeah.
ethical practices?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
But one thing is for sure, the legal landscape has to adapt. We're already seeing some interesting developments,
Like what?
like courts starting to weigh in on gig worker rights.
And governments looking at ways to regulate these dark stores.
So it's a bit of a wait-and-see situation.
It is.
Okay.
But it's an exciting time to be following these developments.
For sure.
We're literally witnessing the birth of a new industry
Yeah.
and the legal frameworks that are going to define it. Before we get into all the details of Q-commerce,
Yeah.
I think it's good to understand how much those FDI restrictions we were talking about
Uh-huh.
really affect the e-commerce world.
You mean like how those restrictions on inventory-based models are actually playing out?
Exactly. Like take a company like Nike.
Okay.
Globally, they're known for that sleek online store.
It's a direct-to-consumer approach.
Yeah.
But here in India, because of these FDI rules, they have to mainly operate through marketplaces like
Okay.
Flipkart and Amazon.
So instead of controlling their whole brand experience, like
Right.
from website to delivery,
exactly.
they're relying on these platforms.
Yeah.
That has to have some downsides, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like what?
Control over pricing, brand messaging, customer service.
Yeah.
All of that gets way more complicated
Yeah.
when you're basically just renting space in someone else's digital mall.
Right.
Yeah, and for the consumer, it can be confusing too. You might think you're buying from Nike directly,
Right.
but there's a whole other layer in between. Yeah.
So those FDI restrictions really have a ripple effect on the whole system.
They do. And then Q-commerce comes in.
Right.
This need for speed
Yeah.
puts even more pressure on those models.
Yeah.
And the laws that are supposed to control them.
Right.
It's like trying to fit that square peg in a round hole again.
Yeah. But that speed brings a whole bunch of new problems that the laws weren't really made for.
Like what?
Well, licensing and compliance.
Okay.
Imagine all these dark stores
Yeah.
popping up everywhere.
All over cities.
Yeah, basically mini warehouses
Right.
with everything you could need.
Yeah.
You can't just run those without a ton of rules.
Right. It's not like someone can just use their apartment as a dark store.
Exactly. It's a total logistical nightmare before you even get to the delivery part.
Right. And speaking of delivery,
Yeah.
those gig workers, they're the whole backbone of this Q-commerce thing.
They're huge.
Are there legal issues with that too?
That's probably the biggest legal and ethical problem for Q-commerce.
Really?
Yeah, you've got all these delivery people
Right.
racing through
To
traffic,
get those deliveries done.
trying to meet these crazy deadlines.
Right.
But the labor laws haven't caught up to the gig economy at all. It's complicated.
Okay.
You have the flexibility,
Yeah.
and you can make good money. That's
Right.
why people do gig work.
Right.
But there's also no protection,
Yeah.
and people can be taken advantage of.
And with Q-commerce, that pressure is even worse, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because time is money.
Exactly. Time is money, and that leads to a lot of questions.
Look, what?
Like, how do we make sure these writers get paid fairly
Right.
and that their jobs are safe?
Uh-huh.
What happens if there's an accident?
Yeah. Who's responsible then?
It's a legal mess we're only starting to figure out.
Wow. And it's not just about the writers, is it?
Yeah.
We have to think about the environment too.
Absolutely. All those deliveries
Yeah.
have a big impact.
All those vehicles on the road, the packaging.
It's a huge concern. The carbon footprint of Q-commerce is getting bigger
Yeah.
all the time.
It feels like convenience always has some kind of cost,
It does.
either for workers
Yeah,
or for the environment.
it really often does. And we're seeing that we need new rules, a new way of thinking about this
Yeah.
to make sure Q-commerce doesn't just become a race to the bottom.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
How do we balance this need for speed
Yeah.
with being sustainable
Yeah.
and ethical?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
But the law is going to have to change, that's for sure. We're already seeing some interesting things happening. And governments are trying to figure out how to deal with dark stores.
So wait and see right
Oh,
now.
now, yeah.
Oh,
But it's a really interesting time to be watching all this unfold.
for sure.
I mean, we're seeing a whole new industry being born,
Yeah.
and the laws are being made right now.
That's pretty exciting.
It is.
We talked about a lot today. From the actual laws themselves
Yeah.
to the challenges that come with this whole
Yeah, this
the
is
needed now
Yeah.
Q-commerce world.
It seems like the only thing that stays the same is that things are always changing.
Right.
Technology is moving so fast, consumer behavior is shifting,
Uh-huh.
and the law is always trying to catch up.
Yeah.
Do you think those rules will ever actually change?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
It's a really hot topic.
it is.
There's this constant back and forth
Yeah.
between getting foreign investment and
Right.
protecting businesses here.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens, especially with Q-commerce,
Yeah, for sure.
because it blurs the lines between marketplace and inventory-based platforms.
Exactly.
It's almost like we need a whole new category
Yeah.
in the law just for Q-commerce.
Right.
What about consumers, though? Are there going to be any updates
Yeah.
to the laws to better protect them?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We talked about the Consumer Protection Act, but that's really just the beginning.
Good.
The big thing right now is data privacy
Data
with India's data protection bill coming up. Yeah.
This is going to have a huge impact
Yeah.
on how all these e-commerce platforms use our information. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty good at ignoring those targeted ads,
Right.
but it is kind of creepy how well they know my shopping habits.
It is kind of creepy, and it's only going to get more advanced with
Mhm.
AI and all that.
Wow.
Hopefully, the new law will give us more control
Yeah.
over how our data is used.
I like that, taking back some power.
Yeah. The next time I order something online,
Yeah.
I'm going to think about the bigger picture.
Exactly.
The laws, the businesses,
Yeah.
the people delivering my stuff, the
Yeah.
environment.
Every time we buy something, it's like we're voting for the kind of future we want.
That's a really interesting way to think about it.
It is.
Like online shopping is activism now.
In a way, yeah. And as technology keeps changing,
Yeah.
it's up to us to decide how it affects us.
And the world around us.
Exactly. So stay curious,
Yeah.
keep learning,
Uh-huh.
and keep asking those tough questions.
And thank you to you, our listeners, for taking the time to dive in with us.
Until next time, happy shopping.
And stay curious